Most photographers think they know what they're looking for until Iceland shows them what they really need to see. In this video, I want to share my 5 favorite locations in Iceland. Not just because they're beautiful, but because each one taught me a lesson that made me a better photographer. Most people go to Iceland with a shot list. I went there thinking that I was ready, but it wasn't until I got there I realized how much more I still had to learn. At Kirkjufell, I learned how quickly conditions can humble you. At Skutafoss, I finally slowed down long enough to really see the different ways I can photograph a single location. At Bruarfoss, in addition to being in awe of the unique beauty, I learned how to think beyond just the classic photo. So, if you're planning a trip to Iceland or you just want to improve your photography, I think that these locations and the stories behind them will give you some ideas that you can use in your own work. Let's start with the one place I just absolutely had to see when I went to Iceland, and that's Kirkjufell. Kirkjufell was the iconic shot for me. I'd seen it 100 times online. The mountain, the waterfall. I remember approaching it in the van and thinking, wow, I can't believe I'm here. I was so ready to get out there and shoot. But the weather conditions had other ideas. Even when we arrived, we needed to wait a few minutes for the driving rain to slow down. And then there was the wind. It was so difficult at times to stand upright. I was still very excited to be there. And over the course of the next 2 hours that we were there, it rained and then it didn't rain. It was windy and then the wind stopped. It was cloudy and then the sun came out. The session ultimately became an exercise in adjusting to the changing weather conditions. In fact, these 2 photos were taken within 30 minutes of each other. And I was fairly new at this. So while dealing with the weather, I was putting my focus stack study to work. I was breaking in a new filter system, and the constant changes in lighting were allowing me to work on my bracketing. I have to admit, it was nerve-wracking and exhilarating at the same time. The key lesson was adapting to the changing weather conditions. I'll never forget that first trip to Kirkjufell. And from Kirkjufell, we move on to Bruarfoss. Bruarfoss is part of Iceland's famous Golden Circle and is located about an hour and a half by car from Reykjavik. I don't think there's another waterfall and cascade quite like it anywhere. I'd seen so many photos of this place and I honestly didn't believe that the water could be really this deep turquoise blue. I was wrong. It really is that blue. The other thing about Bruarfoss that surprises you when you get there is it's really not that big. I had always thought that that classic shot you'd always seen, the one up here, was all shot by a drone. The shot is actually shot at a small footbridge that is very near that churning water in the front. And that bridge is not very high. It really seems to be kind of a weird optical illusion. But the thing is really magnificent when you're there. Now, this is an easy waterfall to get to. Very easy to drive to. And the walk to the waterfall is no more than 5 minutes. Now, that presents a bit of a challenge. This is a beautiful waterfall. It's well publicized. Everybody knows about it. Everybody wants to be there. And they generally are. It can be very crowded there. And the prime viewing area is a fairly small space. As I said earlier, it's a bridge. So if you're on that bridge and you want to take a photograph, there are constant vibrations. So you can put away the tripod. It's not going to be of any use to you. Now, on that particular day, I also had a bit of a mishap. A screw came out of my tripod leg. I ended up losing the leg. I almost lost it in the cascade. Now, not having a tripod is not the end of the world. On a relatively bright day, you can shoot very easily handheld and get a great shot. And in fact, the shot that I got was handheld. The other thing I would advise you is not to get too hung up on the iconic shot. There's a lot of other compositions available there. You can take a telephoto lens deep into the waterfall and get some very interesting shots there. You can also walk onto either bank and also find some very interesting compositions. And I've in fact seen people shoot from under the bridge, not in the water, but very close to it, and have also gotten some very interesting compositions. And there's always 1 or 2 drones flying around. So there's lots of options. Now, if you want to avoid crowds, you can very easily do that. You can either go very early in the morning before sunrise, or you can go very late in the evening. This is especially true in the summer. You could probably be there at midnight and still have great light. Usually those times of the day seem to be reserved for photographers, and that's fine with me. If you're finding these stories and lessons helpful for your own photography, feel free to give the video a like. And if you'd like to follow along as I keep working to improve, you're welcome to subscribe. Now, on to the next location. Our next stop is probably my favorite. I don't think I'll ever stop going there. Skutafoss is a little gem just off the ring road in southeast Iceland, between Vestrahorn and Iceland. It's actually two side-by-side waterfalls, and what I love about it is that it's almost always ignored in favor of the more famous locations. It's almost as if the tourists have said, hey photographers, you can have this one. Now for a photographer, that's a gift. Over the course of a few hours, you might see only a handful of tourists, and within maybe a 120-foot radius, you have a ridiculous number of compositions to play with. This is the spot where you can feel free to experiment. Plan to stay for a few hours. Absolutely no need to rush. One of the really neat things about Skutafoss is you can really slow down and practice a lot of different things. There are many great compositions there you can work on. You can also work on the technical side of your photography. If you want to play around with your ND filters and just kind of see how they affect different scenes, if you want to play with your polarizer, if you want to practice focus stacking, you've got an opportunity to do that. It's a great spot for a photographer who enjoys the solitude of being behind the camera. You'll love this place. In terms of the timing as to when to get there, early morning and the evening is probably the best. But here's what I really prefer. If you can arrange it, try to get there on an overcast day. The moodiness in the sky really suits this place. And you have the added benefit of not being in any kind of time crunch where you're waiting for the sunrise, you're waiting for the sunset, or you're waiting for the perfect light. When you go there and you've got an overcast day, you're really going to enjoy it. And here's one tip. Do not miss the opportunity to climb up on top of the cave. You'll know exactly what I mean when you get there. And you'll get this shot, which is one of my favorites. And that's one that I've got hanging in my own home. So for me, Skutafoss is just the perfect place you can go to get lost in your photography. You can spend 2, 3, 4 hours there easily, get some great shots, learn a few things about your photography and your camera, and just have a great time. Our next stop is Vestrahorn. Vestrahorn is in southeast Iceland, just off the ring road, with the nearest large town being Hoffen. On my trip to Iceland in September 2021, this was one of the locations I was most excited to see. But when we arrived, the weather had other plans. The mist that day was so low and so thick that Vestrahorn was completely out of sight. Huge disappointment. When I came back in 2024, the experience was totally different. Now what we learned is that this isn't a quick stop location. You could easily spend a few days here with your camera or your drone taking all kind of shots, and at the end of a couple of days you might still feel you're just scratching the surface. I wish we had more time than the couple of hours that we spent there, but we didn't. And as I think about this location and what I might do there in the future, I'm pretty much convinced that I'm going to spend a week in that area. It will certainly be worth it. To give you a perspective on the size of this place, look at this map. And you can see the mountain at the top of the map, and then you can see the black sand beach as well as the shoreline. The area that I've shaded in red by itself represents about 320 acres. So that gives you a perspective on what we're dealing with here. Now, you've got some beautiful black sand dunes that you can use as foreground, shaping little leading lines and curves towards the mountain. You can wander down to the ocean and use the shoreline itself as a leading line. And if you're patient and time it with the tide, you can get reflections of the entire mountain in the wet sand or shallow water. What Vestrahorn has showed me is that there are some places that are just going to take a little bit of time. You can't just make a quick stop, expect to get a couple of photos, and then be done with it. This is one of those places that is worthy of spending a good amount of time to get some great images. But believe me, it'll be worth it. Well, we have one more location, and I'm telling you, you're going to love it. One of the most popular waterfalls in all of Iceland is Skutafoss. And just minutes from Skutafoss, you'll find Kvernufoss. And while thousands of people will visit Skutafoss, Kvernufoss is largely ignored by the vast majority of tourists. But for a photographer, Kvernufoss is a treat. I love this spot because it feels like a bit of a secret. You're so close to one of Iceland's busiest waterfalls, but here it's quieter and much more intimate. The waterfall is tucked into this small canyon, and the whole scene feels like it was just designed for photographers. There are so many ways to tackle Kvernufoss. You can start by shooting it from a distance, nestled in the canyon. One of my favorite memories when I first visited Kvernufoss is that it is a slight hike from the parking lot. You go up a bit of an incline, and as you come up over the hill, you suddenly see the waterfall off in the distance in this beautiful canyon. I'll just never forget that sight. And you can stop right there, put out your tripod, and take a wonderful picture. From there, you can then walk behind the waterfall and photograph it from inside the falls. And that's where this location really comes alive. If you bring a wide-angle lens with you, you get a real sense of space from behind the waterfall. And so many great images can be taken right in there. And if you're flying a drone, this is a fantastic place from the air. You can reveal the waterfall as it drops into the canyon. You can pull back slowly, get a very nice shot. And if your drone has the capability of shooting in slow motion, you're going to get some fantastic footage. Now, I know I'm beginning to sound like a broken record here, but this is another place that you can take your time, and it is worth the time that you're going to spend there. Kvernufoss reminded me that some of the best photographic opportunities are sometimes next to the main attraction. And this is a perfect example. You've got a very popular waterfall just minutes away, and that's where everybody's going to go. The biggest reward you're going to get for your photography efforts is spending some time at Kvernufoss. I guarantee it. So those are the 5 places that didn't just give me photographs, they each changed me a little bit as a photographer. Now, you know, when I first stood at Kirkjufell on that very first trip, it really hit me how much more I had to learn as a photographer. And looking back at each of these locations now, it's clear to me that it's never just about getting the iconic or postcard shot. It's about paying attention to the conditions, slowing down, and being willing to adjust when things don't quite go the way you planned. If something in this video gave you an idea for your own photography, I'd be really interested to hear it. Which of these locations would you put down on your Iceland list, or which experience resonated with you the most? Let me know down in the comments. I do read them. And if you'd like to follow along as I keep working at this and trying to improve, I'll put another video up on the screen that talks a bit more about the changes I'm making in my own photography. Thanks for watching, and I hope you get a chance to get out there with your camera soon.